To establish a company and to do it well, the first thing you need to do is to make a good product.
So I went to the movies today. I'm going to kind of make this kind of quick, but I went to the movies today and saw Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood after waiting for it to come out and being excited about it and all this stuff. I guess I'll just do a quick review. I feel like it was good, but at the same time I feel let down by it. I guess I had built it up too much in my head, thinking it was going to be this amazing movie, or like industry-changing movie or whatever, and it really wasn't. I mean, it was really good at times, but there were some things I had where I felt negatively towards it. I guess I can kind of go through pros and cons in a way, so I'll start with the good things. Obviously, Tom Hanks did a great job in the role of Mr. Rogers. They have like all the little musical motifs and stuff of the show, and so that's constantly kind of playing throughout the movie, which is kind of nice. It gives it this very like warm, uplifting kind of tone to it, and his presence as the character, as the actor or whatever, also gives a nice, warm, calming, happy, pleasant tone to the whole movie. The actor playing the protagonist, who's not Mr. Rogers, did a good job too. I don't really know much about the writer or whatever for the Esquire magazine, but he seemed very real, in contrast to the kind of whimsical, like fantasy-esque style of like Mr. Rogers, where he's like, such a positive person no matter the situation, like in a kind of messed up world. He's always exuding positivity and trying to make people feel better about themselves and learn how to deal with negative situations. But I guess I need to continue with the positives before I go into the negatives, but I feel like all the supporting characters did a pretty good job. I mean, the movie as a whole was good. I just have certain issues with it. I really like the way that they did like transitions in the style of like the miniatures and stuff, to kind of reflect the I think it was like the Land of Make Believe or something. It's been so long since I've seen that show. I have good memories of it, but unfortunately they're few and far between because, as we get older, we tend to forget stuff like that, and I haven't exactly been watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood or whatever in a long time. But it did have some sort of like nostalgic value for me. Like I remember basically seeing it practically every day, I think, in preschool and kindergarten growing up. And it just was always something that was very positive to me. So most of the time I feel like I did have a smile on my face throughout the movie, but I still noticed the things I didn't like about it. I guess to go kind of into the negatives, I feel like the movie didn't focus enough on Mr. Rogers. Like, I get that it's about an author or writer or whatever writing an article that becomes like a whole big, front page article or whatever, like or a cover rather. So it was like a giant thing in the end, but like it felt like they were just kind of working on his interview with him, but yet the whole time Mr. Rogers is kind of flipping it on him and making it like trying to better him, which I think everybody can get from the trailer. That's kind of what's going on. But I feel as though the movie really focuses on that protagonist, and Mr. Rogers feels secondary because of that. And it kind of, it makes it show how he had an impact on other people, it kind of feels like there wasn't enough time spent on him, I guess, if that makes sense. What was there was really good, and I do think that they showed some nice aspects to what he was able to do as a person. But they make it out to look like in the trailers that it's going to be this biopic or something. Like it's going to be something where you learn all about him, when in reality, you learn almost nothing about him. It stays just this mysterious, like, pleasant guy that betters those around him rather than show any, like, real past or anything to who he is. There are points where the writer or whatever, tries to draw him back to the interview or whatever instead of having it be flipped around into like a pseudo therapy session or whatever. But it just, like, there were a couple times where Mr. Rogers would, like, come out and say something about his personal life, but it was very few and far between. So it's just a hard movie to critique because I feel like it probably did what it was trying to do, but it didn't necessarily do what the trailers made it look like it was going to do, if that makes sense. The trailers totally make it look like it's going to be focused on Mr. Rogers with this other guy as a secondary character, or at least them being equal. Whereas this movie, I honestly feel like it's Mr. Rogers secondary to this main character. But the trailers made it out to look so different that I went into it with a different expectation, a different mindset, and it really threw me off throughout the whole thing. So while I can objectively say it was a really good movie and an interesting story and stuff like that, I have some, hang-ups with it and disappointments with it that I feel like a lot of people will probably share if you got the same thing out of the trailer that I got. Again, lots of positives, just some small concerns and negatives and things like that. I don't know. I think it's worth going to see if you have interest in it, but just don't go into it thinking it's going to tell you anything you don't already know from watching the show about Mr. Rogers, because it's kind of like just that surface level, and it keeps it kind of mysterious, which I guess is kind of cool in its own way, but beyond that, it's more about the other characters and how they kind of take in what he says and teaches, which is kind of cool, I guess, but it's not what I wanted or expected. So as for like a critique of the actual quality of the movie and the themes and all that, it's probably pretty high. I mean, it was a little short, so that's another complaint I have. But I guess if I had to give it a rating overall, I'd probably give it like a 7.5 maybe, because I feel like it did some things really well, but there's a lot that holds it back for me, where like basically the misdirection with how it was marketed and stuff like that really bugs me, and it's I feel like it could have been longer. I feel like it could have focused more on that character as opposed to what I would have assumed and considered a secondary character. But it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I just wish that they had gone a bit further with it than they did, especially for how it looked like it was going to be. It was kind of disappointing, but it was still good. So if you're interested, I would recommend going to see it, but just don't go into it with the wrong mindset, and then maybe you'll come out with a better experience than I had. But yeah, overall, I'd give Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood a 7.5 or so out of 10. And I'll see you in the next review, whenever that may be, or next gaming video, which will hopefully be really soon. Okay, bye.